The first light of dawn broke, and Han Li returned to the Crimson Dawn Peak unnoticed, swiftly traversing the courtyard to his cave abode. Upon securing the area with his protective restrictions, he entered his secret chamber and sat upon his cushion. A simple white porcelain teacup appeared in his hand. No artifact, merely a common vessel, taken from the hall during his walk. With a flick of his finger, the porcelain rim cracked, a soft echo filling the silence. Han Li observed the break, nodding to himself, and placed the broken cup before him. He performed a hand seal, and the golden flash of the mantra-treasured axis materialized behind him. The axis began to spin, its central vertical eye opening, casting a golden glow as its time Dao runes activated. As the eye's gaze fell upon the teacup, the golden light enveloped it, but the break remained untouched. Han Li sighed in acknowledgement. Ordinary items were beyond the reach of the Eye of Truth. Without hesitation, he summoned a black octagonal pagoda, a once mighty treasure now damaged, its power diminished but not entirely useless. He placed it before him and activated the Eye of Truth again. The pagoda glowed with golden and black light, revealing hidden runes, yet the missing top remained absent. His brow furrowed slightly as he pondered, before stowing it away and retrieving a damaged red seal. The Eye of Truth scanned this as well, but the outcome was the same. The missing portions of these treasures remained lost. Hours passed as Han Li tested numerous treasures, all bearing some form of damage. The Eye of Truth revealed no restoration, but only the stone monument in the White Finch Valley secret area had responded. He was no closer to understanding. With a thoughtful expression, Han Li retrieved a jade box, inside which lay the precious night cloud herb, a spirit plant cultivated for over 50 millennia. Opening the box, a rich aroma filled the air, and with another hand seal, the mantra-treasured axis spun once more. The Eye of Truth projected a beam of golden light upon the herb, causing it to shrink and revert to its youthful form. Han Li smiled. He had uncovered the secret. The Eye of Truth could restore only those items touched by time itself, those imbued with the power of time. His next test was the eye of the primordial Fey beast, retrieved from its resting place. As the Eye of Truth gazed upon it, the beast's immense form was conjured before him in a majestic projection, filling the chamber with its colossal presence. Han Li approached its head, examining it closely before the projection faded with the eye's closure. Han Li's thoughts raced as he retrieved a crystal imbued with the power of time. His gaze turned to the Eye of Truth once more, but as the crystal began to glow with intense light, a violent surge of energy erupted, breaking the crystal and sending a piercing force into the mantra-treasured axis. The shock reverberated through Han Li, throwing him backward. The axis trembled with unrelenting force, its new Tai-Dao rune flickering into existence before his eyes. A revelation, or a new danger, had appeared. A glimmer of confusion flickered in Han Li's eyes as he gazed intently at the mantra-treasured axis, his bright sight spirit eyes allowing him to discern the 25 time Dao runes upon its surface. Could it be that the Eye of Truth had absorbed the power of time itself? The possibility sent a thrill through his heart. If this addition was permanent, it would be a monumental breakthrough. However, without more crystals to experiment with, he could only wait for a month before testing further. His earthly deity avatar would have to make do without crystals for now. Suppressing his excitement with a soft sigh, Han Li withdrew the axis into his body and reached for the heaven-controlling vial, a treasure that had been with him since the early days of his cultivation. Its power over time was unmatched, and it was the key to unlocking many of his mysteries. He studied the leaf-shaped patterns on its surface, pondering its origins. No harm had come from his earlier experiment, but the vial was too important to take risks with. He carefully placed the vial on the floor before activating his Eye of Truth, directing its beam of golden light toward the vial. The vial trembled before rising into the air, its surface glowing with an ethereal light. A speck of white light appeared within it, turning the vial translucent and making the patterns seem alive. Han Li's anticipation grew, but suddenly the light shifted to a dark green. Swallowing the golden beam like a vortex, alarmed, Han Li quickly closed his Eye of Truth, only to find the vial unchanged. After a brief moment of calm, he decided to continue. He activated the 25th time Dao rune, and once again, A golden beam shone upon the vial. This time, the vial absorbed the light and shot out a green beam toward the Eye of Truth. The green light was slow-moving but utterly unstoppable, washing over the Eye of Truth and turning it green. Simultaneously, the mantra-treasured axis began to tremble violently, the golden light warping uncontrollably. It seemed as though the axis might collapse. Han Li acted swiftly to stabilize it, but a suction force emerged from the axis, pulling at his immortal spiritual power. He fought against the pull, expending over 2/3 of his power, but the tremors eventually subsided, and the green light faded. He sighed in relief, his Eye of Truth now forcibly shut, and withdrew the axis into his body. A quick inspection revealed the vial and axis unharmed. "Seems I've underestimated you," Han Li muttered, a wry smile on his face. "But I'll need to improve the Eye of Truth before continuing these tests." He stored the vial away and settled into a meditative stance, focusing his mind on the stone monument's inscriptions. 7 days passed in quiet concentration, but despite his thorough examination, there was no further information on the Eye of Truth within the mantra axis scripture. However, Han Li was far from disappointed. He had discovered that the 25th Time Dao rune remained stable, and the time flow within the golden ripples had slightly slowed. This suggested that the Time Dao rune was indeed permanent. His eyes shone with excitement, for during his study of the 3rd level of the mantra axis scripture, he had uncovered a new ability, the reversal true axis, which reversed time's flow, enhancing speed for its user. To cultivate it, one needed at least 18 Time Dao runes, a feat that Han Li had already achieved with his 25. Thus, he abandoned his original plan to focus on cultivating the 2nd level of the mantra axis scripture, and instead turned his attention to mastering the reversal true axis. The process was far more difficult than it seemed, as it required completely opposite methods to those used for the mantra treasured axis. Despite several attempts, Han Li's efforts were met with failure, as the circulation of his immortal spiritual power clashed violently. Blood rose to his throat, and he was forced to stop. With a wry smile and blood staining his lips, Han Li acknowledged the challenge before him. This cultivation method was not one he could easily master, but with patience and persistence, he would overcome the obstacles in his path. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye, and within the vast valley of Crimson Dawn Peak, a streak of golden light danced through the air like a comet, impossible to follow with the naked eye. Its erratic movements defied logic, darting this way and that in an unpredictable manner. Suddenly, the light came to a stop, revealing Han Li, his face flushed with excitement, his eyes gleaming with the joy of his progress. His form was shrouded in a faint golden aura, which pulsed with strange, otherworldly energy. "Activating all 25 Time Dao runes indeed accelerates my speed," Han Li murmured, a smile tugging at his lips. "As I acquire more, this will only grow stronger, but such power demands immense consumption of my immortal spiritual power." The golden light faded away as though dissolving into his very being. This aura had emanated from the mantra treasured axis, an artifact that had taken him years to master. In his early attempts, Han Li had struggled greatly, unable to control his power, causing him to crash into mountains, destroying vast swathes of terrain. However, through trial and error, he had learned to draw the power of the axis directly into his body, making his movements swifter and more subtle. The key to his success lay in the 25th Time Dao rune, which had remained stable within the axis. This gave Han Li confidence that, should he need to escape from even the mightiest of opponents, his speed would be his salvation. After a final burst of golden radiance, Han Li descended toward his cave abode, eager to proceed with his next phase of cultivation. Once inside his secret chamber, Han Li summoned the mantra treasured axis and set about focusing on its Eye of Truth. Holding a semi-transparent crystal, he allowed the Eye of Truth to absorb its essence, resulting in a faint cracking sound. The golden thread emerged from the crystal and, instead of closing the eye, Han Li allowed it to fuse, creating a 26th Time Dao rune. A grin spread across his face as the realization struck him. He could now add Time Dao runes at will, 1 per month. For the average immortal, cultivating the mantra axis scripture was a grueling process. Yet, Han Li's method allowed him to progress rapidly, each new Time Dao rune further enhancing his abilities. His mind wandered to the possibilities, slowing time, manipulating space. How much further could he push these abilities? Years passed swiftly as Han Li continued this process. His power grew steadily until he reached a remarkable milestone: 108 Time Dao runes. Yet at this point, it seemed that a barrier had been reached, a limit beyond which the Dao runes could not increase. Han Li was not disheartened, for he knew that even the third level of the mantra Axis scripture had only produced 18 Dao runes for others. With this newfound strength, his abilities had become extraordinary. Time could be slowed to a mere fraction of its normal pace, and his speed became a blur, untraceable to the eye. One fateful day, Han Li sat in meditation, his mantra treasured axis glowing with golden light, the Dao runes pulsing in rhythm. As he chanted, the axis spun, and a fist-sized golden ball emerged from its center, radiating an intense light. The Eye of Truth manifested once more, projecting a beam of golden light. Through this beam, Han Li saw everything in his surroundings with perfect clarity, revealing hidden restrictions, minute changes, and distant figures. But just as Han Li was about to investigate further, the unexpected happened. The heaven-controlling vial, which had been resting in his hand, suddenly burst with light, flinging him backward with tremendous force. His mantra-treasured axis flew toward the vial, its Eye of Truth glowing intensely. Han Li's efforts to regain control of the situation were futile, as both the vial and the axis seemed to resonate with each other, their energies entwining. In an instant, the vial swelled to the size of a human head, and green runes began to swirl across its surface. A beam of green light shot out, tearing through space itself, leaving a rift that twisted and distorted. Han Li watched in bewilderment, unsure whether the unfolding events would herald a new beginning or a catastrophic end. The very fabric of reality trembled, and Han Li stood on the precipice of something far greater than he had anticipated. The spatial rift trembled, splitting wider and wider, until a luminous wall of light materialized before Han Li, its size towering at 50 to 60 feet. Waves of brilliance surged from the opening, as the mantra-treasured axis in Han Li's grasp began to spin rapidly. Time Dao runes trembled upon its surface, distorting the space around them. Han Li's brow furrowed, torn between action and observation, yet he chose to remain patient, watching the unfolding spectacle. Specks of light swirled across the wall, images flashing too quickly to discern, until they slowly solidified into distinct shapes. Han Li's gaze sharpened. He could make out a group of figures. As he examined further, a dull, fizzling sound interrupted his focus, and one of the Time Dao runes dimmed to a dull gray. A sensation of emptiness washed over him, as though something was drained from his body. It was a peculiar feeling, one he had never experienced before. Though unsettled, he maintained his composure, unwilling to withdraw just yet, suspecting there was something more to uncover. With each successive dimming of the Time Dao runes, the image became clearer, revealing a mountaintop shrouded in clouds. At its center, an ancient stone platform sat, its cracks worn by time, surrounded by strange figures. The first, a towering, emaciated figure in a yellow robe, resembled a member of the Wood tribe, his features rugged and his hands like gnarled bark. Beside him, a tiny figure with an oversized head teetered on the edge of balance, his body delicate yet grotesque. Another, with fiery red skin and bizarrely proportioned limbs, stood tall with the appearance of one who had been molded by flames. A fourth, childlike in form, but with unnaturally long, jointed arms, wore a simple child's garment. The final figure, a giant cloaked in demon beast hide, radiated a terrifying presence. Though not human, their faces bore a faint resemblance to one. At the center of this strange gathering, seated upon the stone platform, was a rotund monk, his flesh swelling like a mountain. His kasaya robe was adorned with shimmering gems, and in his hand, a string of jade prayer beads glowed with a subtle, mesmerizing light. The monk's lips moved, yet no sound escaped. Instead, 5 colored runes streamed from his mouth, twisting into a cascade of light that seemed to stir the very air. The world trembled with each manifestation, a fiery storm that turned to ice, the winds that rose only to fade. Despite the chaos, the environment remained untouched, and the surrounding figures continued to watch, wrapped in attention. Behind the monk, golden lotus blossoms unfurled, radiating ripples that disturbed the space. Hanli's heart raced with wonder as he observed the phenomena, but his growing desire to understand the monk's words was met with frustration. Though the image was clearer than ever, no sound reached his ears. After a time, the yellow-robed figure rose and asked the monk a question, his hands moving with deliberate gestures. The others nodded, eager for the response. The monk's deep, rumbling laugh shook the very mountain, as though his mirth had power to alter the world around him. Hanli marveled at the force behind the laughter. It was a moment of profound awe. When the laughter subsided, the monk answered, and the yellow-robed figure, enlightened, bowed in respect. One by one, the others followed suit. The monk continued his lecture, his gestures guiding the air as his disciples listened with deep reverence. Hanli felt a strong yearning to hear the monk's words, but despite the image before him, the silence persisted, leaving him to only watch in awe and longing. The passage of time took its toll on the mantra treasured axis as the time Tao runes gradually faded, and the image on the wall of light became more defined. Hanli, eager with anticipation, felt his heart surge as he began to hear muffled sounds emanating from the light. The portly monk, his words imbued with mystic energy, continued his discourse, the air thick with swirling five-colored runes that transformed into strange beasts and otherworldly plants. Captivating the onlookers, the five figures seated on the stone platform exchanged questions, their expressions enlightened by the monk's answers. But Hanli could only remain calm, eager for the image to solidify. His patience wore thin as the runes dimmed, but he fought to steady his mind, longing for the moment when clarity would dawn. Finally, the image stabilized and the sound grew clearer, albeit still incomprehensible. Hanli, undeterred, drew closer, his form now a mere foot away from the glowing wall. His hands moved deftly, activating an ancient technique to enhance his hearing. The monk's voice resonated like the wind through the heavens, filled with a sense of reverence that seemed to awaken something within Hanli. Though he could not decipher the words, the profound sensation of enlightenment enveloped him, stirring the dormant powers in his body. As the monk's teachings continued, light erupted from Hanli's body, gold, azure, and silver, unleashing the latent potential of his cultivation. Immortal acupoints within him began to open, the surge of spiritual energy propelling him toward unprecedented heights. His true spirit projections manifested around him, each one representing a facet of his cultivation as the immortal power surged within him. Yet, despite his ecstasy, something inexplicable stirred within his body. A sensation of warmth washed over his dantian, followed by a series of audible thuds from within his body. 8 immortal acupoints had opened in rapid succession, and the world's origin chi rushed toward him in a vortex of spiritual energy. Hanli, intoxicated with excitement, realized that time was slipping away. He strained to hear more, his heart pounding with anticipation. However, as the monk began his 9th sentence, an unforeseen disturbance rippled through the scene. The monk paused, and his gaze shifted toward Hanli, causing the others to follow suit. The air grew tense, and the tall, yellow-robed figure shouted in anger. The monk's words ceased abruptly, and the image on the wall disintegrated in a cascade of light, causing Hanli's body to tremble violently. Blood spurted from his mouth, and the immortal energy within him was thrown into chaos, threatening to spiral out of control. In a desperate bid for survival, Hanli consumed a batch of stabilizing pills, hoping to quell the turmoil within him. His body fluctuated between violent light displays and dissonant forces as his internal energies fought for dominance. Slowly, the chaos receded, and after a day of intense struggle, Hanli regained his composure. He had suffered, yet gained immensely. 8 immortal acupoints had opened within him, each one a testament to the monk's cryptic teachings. Though the mantra treasured axis had been drained of its vitality in exchange for this boon, Hanli knew the price he had paid was steep. Yet the seeds of enlightenment sown by the monk's teachings were invaluable. He pondered deeply, contemplating the future path ahead. Days passed, and Hanli's connection with the mantra-treasured axis faltered, its time Tao runes extinguished. Panic flared within him. But upon further meditation, he sensed a faint, lingering connection. His heart steadied with relief, for as long as the spiritual link remained, there was hope for restoration. With resolve, Hanli redoubled his efforts. his thoughts shifting between his cultivation and the enigmatic words of the monk, seeking understanding from the depths of his being.